Good afternoon. I would like to discuss a little bit about perseverance and the need to establish goals. And this is inspired by a story from 1911 about two men who set out to uh, conquer the South Pole to get there first. And the it was the frenzy of the time, those couple decades to and from, to reach the far edges of the earth first, to be noted. And it's a noble thing. It's geography. It is discovery. And one of these, both men did not know each other, and yet they both had their sights on the South Pole, and they both set out for the South Pole about the same time. Interestingly enough, and one was by the name of Robert Scott, and the other one was by the name of Roald Amundsen. And it's interesting to study these two individuals and how they prepared for uh, this great historic trip of theirs to the South Pole. And it's really two different mindsets, and it's truly interesting. Let me attack Mr. Robert Scott first. Robert Scott loved technology. And yes, at the time there were engines and machines. And so he saw that wonderful display of power as a means to get to the South Pole. And so he prepared the best machine, and he did what he could to weather it and to make it work. And he gathered the best minds as far as uh, what is going to make the best sledding or footing to be able to weather or withstand the snow and the ice that it's going to have to ride upon all those miles. And so he set out, but from day one, it was almost the entire journey was fraught with uh, danger and complete failure, for lack of a better word. The untested engine for the terrain kept freezing up. He put all his cards on a few things like an engine or special padding or this and that, and these things fell apart. It was an ill-conceived uh, plan, and so the men were demoralized. Supplies were being depleted. Eventually, they had to turn around and come back from their home base. And oddly enough, the entire crew perished. And I believe it was within 10 or 15 miles on their return trip to their home base. So obviously that didn't work. There was a goal in sight, yes, the South Pole, but he lacked any short-term goals that would allow correct preparation to take place to accomplish them. Turn your sights over to Roald Amundsen. He wanted to reach the North Pole, and when word had come back that that task had already been completed, he immediately turned his sights to the South Pole, and he made preparations to learn the best way to get there. And so, what better way than to be with those that are around snow? And so, this man went and he lived with the Eskimos for a period of time. And he learned some incredible lessons. He asked them, okay, I'm going to make this great journey. What, by what mode is the best to get there? Obviously, to an Eskimo, the mode is going to be dogs. And so, uh, they said, for snow and ice, Their paws are made for this. They are weathered for it. They will make it. So that was his mode of getting there. That was his premise. And that was his tool. And so the team had great success in reaching the South Pole, which they did. And they did have some excruciatingly hard times. The weather was terrible. Uh, just those basic things that you would imagine a journey like that to encompass. Things happened like that. There were death. Um, but the moral of the story, the important thing of this story, is his rule. And Amundsen lived by a certain creed, a certain rule, a precept in his life. And that precept was 12 miles a day. And if you look through the records of his logbooks, you will see that they accomplished rarely below 12 miles a day. In fact, most of the time they far exceeded 12 miles a day. And that's important because he had the same end result, the same goal, if you will, of Scott, that being the South Pole. A noble goal indeed. But just like a ladder, Amundsen had short-term goals, daily goals to get to the South Pole, that being 12 miles a day. And there's so much to learn from that, because if you don't create short-term goals, your brain inherently will find reasons to make the everyday mishaps, the everyday negatives, the everyday trials to become a hindrance to your goal. You will use them as excuses. That is just the tendency, if you will, of the natural man. So he used that rule, and his men used that rule, 12 miles a day. And although they had sickness, although they had some death and some shortcomings and problems to overcome, they did not use that as an excuse. They used that as an obstacle to overcome in order to reach the goal. The goal not being the South Pole, but the goal being 12 miles a day. Interesting. And I've often talked in other videos about the society that we've become. We have become a very complacent, a very apathetic society. We use everyday problems, our own things that we wrap ourselves up in, as an excuse not to reach certain goals. And we lather and relish in our own inferiority, our own downgradedness. In fact, a recent story this week came out about some mass hysteria, almost a riot, in certain locations at Walmart stores this week, where a glitch in the welfare system, the electronic, what's called the EBT system, the electronic banking transfer, where food stamp cards are loaded. There was a glitch, and temporarily there was a no limit on what can be charged on it. And that caught like wildfire. And we had scores and scores, vast numbers of people that deliberately took advantage of that system, advantage of that glitch, advantage of each and every taxpayer in the United States, and cleared the shelves at these stores. Cleared the shelves. Just think of the mindset, the complete sense of unaccountability, the sense of entitlement that was racing through those minds as they finally had that realization that, boy, it's the lottery I hit, and I'm going to take the system for all it can give me. We have become a very complacent society, and it's a very dangerous way to go. It will deplete our reason to compete, our reason to prosper, our reason to be happy. We, as a people, just like Amundsen, need to have long-term goals. Do you want to have a business? Do you want to have a family? Do you want to pay off your home? Do you want to have a job that you really love to do? You need to have the discipline to not only have that goal, that long-term goal in sight, but you need to learn to make short-term goals to accomplish that. What are you going to do each and every day to get to that dream job of yours? What are you going to do each and every day to acquire that business that you've always wanted? Or that car that you want? It could be something like that, some material if you need. And so I believe there are great lessons to learn from not only Amundsen, but also Scott on the correct mindset that you need to prepare for goals, but also to acquire certain precepts in life, certain creeds, certain mottos that you need to live by. And I think that Amundsen had a very wise phrase that he lived by of 12 miles a day. Just think of what you can do with your life if you adopted that same, it could be the same exact words. How different would it be if you adopted that motto in your life of 12 miles a day? A mile being whatever it is that you designate it to be. But to make it a point of yourself that each and every day you're going to accomplish this. You're going to accomplish this and this. So that at the end of climbing all the rungs on that ladder, you have reached that goal. I believe it is a wise thing to create goals for yourself. It is a matter of discipline. It disciplines the mind, it disciplines the body, it disciplines your motivations when you accomplish short-term goals to accomplish an end result. I'm very grateful for the records and the teachings of our forefathers of all ages, because it is their triumphs and also failures that can teach this generation timeless and priceless lessons. And, you know, as a final note, I would encourage everyone to start making your own personal history records, because whether you're going to the South Pole or striving to that better job, we all have lessons to learn, and we all have lessons, important lessons, to pass on to the rising generation.